Ladies. Anybody else? Noch jemand? Word by word. So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Iha, in this material world. Anikam, various. Gunaha, qualities. Agunaha, transcendental. Advara Gyagya. Sorry. Something is missing here.
Maybe Advara is translated as Yogya.
Aha, okay. True. Yeah. Advaraha Yajna. Pritagvida, varieties. Dravya, physical elements. Guna, ingredients. Kriya, performances. Uktibihi, by chanting different mantras. Sampadyate, is worshipped. Artha, interest. Ashaya, purpose. Linga, form. Namabhihi, name. Vishuddha, without contamination. Vijnana, science. Ghanaha, concentrated. Swarupataha, in his own form. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. That's a long purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental and not contaminated by this material world. But although he is concentrated spirit soul without material variety, for the benefit of the conditioned soul, he nevertheless accepts different types of sacrifice performed with various material elements, rituals and mantras, and offered to the demigods under different names according to the interests and purpose of the performers. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. For material prosperity, there are recommendations in the Vedas for various types of yajna, sacrifice. In Bhagavad Gita 3.10, it is confirmed that Lord Brahma created all living entities, including human beings and demigods, and advised them to perform yajna according to their material desires. Saha yajna praja srishtva. These performances are called yajnas because their ultimate goal is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. The purpose of performing yajnas is to get material benefit, but because the aim is to simultaneously satisfy the Supreme Lord, such yajnas have been recommended in the Vedas. Such performances are, of course, known as karma kanda, or material activities, and all material activities are certainly contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Generally, the karma kanda ritualistic ceremonies are performed in the mode of passion, Yet the conditioned souls, both human beings and demigods, are obliged to perform these yajnas because without them one cannot be happy at all. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur recommends that these karmakanda ritualistic ceremonies, although contaminated, contain touches of devotional service because whenever there is a performance of any yajna, Lord Vishnu is giving a central position. This is very important because even a little endeavor to please Lord Vishnu is bhakti and is of great value. A tinge of bhakti purifies the material nature of the performances, which by devotional service gradually come to the transcendental position. Therefore, although such yajnas are superficially material activities, the results are transcendental. Such yajnas as Surya Yajna, Indra Yajna, and Chandra Yajna are performed in the name of the demigod, but these demigods are bodily parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods cannot accept sacrificial offerings for themselves, but they can accept them for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as a departmental tax collector of a government cannot collect taxes for his personal account, but can realize them for the government. Any yajna performed with this complete knowledge and understanding is described in Bhagavad Gita as Brahmarpanam, or sacrifice offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since no one but the Supreme Lord can enjoy the results of sacrifice, the Lord says that He is the actual enjoyer of all sacrifices. Bhaktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. Sacrifices should be performed with this view in mind, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.24. Brahmarpanam brahmahavir brahmagno brahmana hatau brahmaiva tena gatvayam brahmakarma samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of all his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is the same spiritual nature, of the same spiritual nature. The performer of sacrifices must always keep in view that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas are meant to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishnur Aradyate Pantaha, Vishnu Purana. Anything material or spiritual done for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord is understood to be an actual yajna. And by performing such yajnas, one gets liberation from material bondage. The direct method of getting liberation from material bondage is devotional service, comprising the 9 following methods: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. This 9-fold process is described in this verse as Vishuddha Vijnaya Ganaha, or satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly by transcendental knowledge concentrated on the form of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This is the best method for satisfying the Supreme Lord. One who cannot take to this direct process, however, should take the indirect process of performing yajnas for the satisfaction of Vishnu or yajna. Vishnu is therefore called Yajnapati, Shriyapatim Yajnapatim Jagatpatim. The Supreme Personality of Godhead's deep scientific knowledge is concentrated in the Supreme Spirit. For example, medical science knows something superficially, but doctors do not know exactly how things happen in the body. Lord Krishna, however, knows everything in detail. Therefore, his knowledge is Vijnaya Gahanaha, because it does not have any of the defects of material science. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Vishuddha Vijnaya Ghana, concentrated, transcendental knowledge. Therefore, even though he accepts karma kandiya materialistic yajnas, he always remains in a transcendental position. Therefore, the mention of aneka gunaha refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead's many transcendental qualities, for he is not affected by the material qualities. The different kinds of material paraphernalia or physical elements are also gradually transformed into spiritual understanding, because ultimately there is no difference between material and spiritual qualities. For everything emanates from the Supreme Spirit. This is realized by a gradual process of realization and purification. One vivid example of this is Dhruva Maharaj, who took to meditation in the forest to achieve material benefit, but ultimately became spiritually advanced and did not want any benediction from material profit. He was simply satisfied with the association of the Supreme Lord. Ashaya means determination. Generally, a conditioned soul has the determination for material profit. But when these desires for material profit are satisfied through performance of yajna, one gradually achieves the spiritual platform. Then life becomes perfect. Srimad-Bhagavatam 2.3.10 therefore recommends, Akama sarvakamova mokshakama udharadihi tivrena bhakti yogena jajeta purusham param. Everyone, whether akama, a devotee, sarvakama, a karmi, or mokshakami, a jnani or yogi, is encouraged to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the direct method of devotional service. In this way, one can get both material and spiritual profit simultaneously. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyanangyana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamaram Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopipakanta Radhakanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pango Urmama Manda Matergati Matsarvasva Padam Vojo Radhamadana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumada Shrimad Ratangara Simhasanasto Shrimad Radha Srila Govinda Deva Prashtalivi Savyamana Usmarami Shrimanra Sarasarambi Vamsiva Tadatastitaha Karshambeno Swanar Gopi Gopinata Shriyastunaha Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishavanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Once again the verse. Aso ihanika guno guno dvaraha pritak vida dravya guna kriyottibihi sampadyatir tashaya linganamabhir vishuddha vijnana gana swarupataha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental and not contaminated by this material world, but although he is concentrated spirit soul without material variety for the benefit of the conditioned soul, he nevertheless accepts different types of sacrifice performed with various material elements, rituals and mantras, and offered to the demigods under different names according to the interest and purposes of the performers. So maybe we'll start at the back part of the purport. There's this very famous verse from Srimad-Bhagavatam, second canto. Akama sarvakama va. So this verse is encouraging anybody, no matter in what position they find themselves in life to take shelter of Krishna. And this is very encouraging because in many other, you could say, verses or generally also many acharyas or speakers, they might emphasize that unless one is pure, unless the motivation is pure, there's no real pure devotional service. You know? So, like for example, Srila Prabhupada sometimes says that bhakti yoga means pure devotion, you know, without any selfish desires or motivations. So therefore, strictly speaking, we are not really bhakti yogis, you know, because we're not really practicing bhakti yoga. You know? So we are practicing, you know, a form of bhakti yoga, but it's mixed with some, you know, material desires or motivations, also conditionings. You know? So technically speaking, we're not bhakti yogis, but then Srila Prabhupada says, because our aim is pure devotional service, or if our aim is pure devotional service, then we can call ourselves bhakti yogis. Because our aim is, you know, but doesn't mean that we are already there or already embody the real qualities of bhakti yoga. So therefore, this verse is very encouraging because it says, you know, akama. Akama means somebody who is completely free of material desires, like Shukadeva Goswami or the Kumaras. They have no material inclinations whatsoever. They are Atmarama. They are happy and satisfied within themselves. You could say they are independent and self-sufficient in their happiness. They don't require anything external to be happy. This is akama. Akama means no desires, you know, no material desires, free of material desires. And here Srila Prabhupada translates an akama as a devotee. A devotee should be akama, no material desires. So such a person should bhakti yogena, how's it go? Bhakti yogena, tivrena bhakti yogena. We should take shelter of bhakti yoga. Or sarvakama, somebody who has all desires, you know. And Prabhupada translated as a karmi, but so karmi means somebody who likes karma, you could say. You know. And very often, of course, within ISKCON we refer to everybody outside of the temple as karmis. You know, we are free of desires, and outside everybody has desires. You know, but of course, in reality, we should understand that we are also are karmis. You know, we have some material desires. You know. And also there is very important to understand that a karmi is actually somebody who has, even he has material desires, he is actually following everything that was described before. You know, he's following karma kanda, he's following all kind of different Vedic rituals, Vedic systems to attain material blessings. You know. So in the second canto there's this very long sequence, you know, of different devatas we can worship for different benefits, you know. I forgot the exact list, but if you worship Indra, you will get fame. If you worship Surya, you will get health. If you worship Shiva, you will get, I forget, heroism or power. And so there's a big list, you know, all the different demigods, devatas, and you know what benefits they can give us. And all of these devatas have, of course, a very specific form of rituals, maybe also tapasyas, but especially different forms of offerings, rituals that you can perform in order to please them, in order to invoke their blessings. You know, like many people, of course, nowadays perform Surya Namaskar. Is very popular and famous in yoga. You know. So you worship the sun god with Surya Namaskar every morning, you know, facing the east. You know, you will be healthy. You know, everybody knows that. You know, even if you don't chant the mantras, you know, if you do the Surya Namaskar every morning, at least 5 minutes, half an hour, you will feel the benefits. So it's a very, you could say, practical process. You can perform these rituals, activities in order to receive blessings. So a karmi technically is not somebody who is sinful. That's very important. So because in general we refer to anybody who is not in a temple as a karmi, or generally somebody who might be sinful, but actually that would be an akarmi, somebody who is performing sinful activities, without, you could say, no sustainable looking into the future. A karma yogi is very smart, you could say, in the sense that he is maybe taking some hardships, is endeavoring so that in the future he can enjoy. So the akarmi, he is not doing that. He's looking for immediate pleasures, and that of course has the result that the immediate pleasures usually result in some form of poison, some form of backlash. Sometimes also the way an akarmi deals with the world is described as somebody who's accumulating debt. So when you accumulate debt, you might be enjoying, but you don't really deserve it. So when finally at one point, they knock on your door, because you haven't paid the credit card bill, in a long time, and they just take your television and everything, latest then, it can come in all different forms. It could also be drugs is a very good example, intoxication. Intoxication is a quick fix, but the it's the happiness that you feel there. Like many people only have confidence to speak out or to be themselves, when they are intoxicated. Then they have enough courage to talk to people or make friendships. But all of this is, of course, not really deserved. So the karma yogi, the karmi, is somebody who is actually honestly endeavoring to elevate his position, to improve his position. It might be through honest work, or also through some form of rituals. And then the last is moksha kama. Moksha kama means the desire for liberation. Desire for liberation. So at one point, anybody who is a little bit introspective or also has suffered enough in this world will come to the point of realizing that actually, no matter how much you endeavor in this world, ultimately it's not really fulfilling. It's not really fulfilling. No matter how much you have, how much you achieve, how much respect, honor, success, wealth, social status, power, influence. It's not a cure, for the vacuum, the sense of emptiness that we might be feeling. So, this is common wisdom. Many philosophers, many common people, many people who have, who have been very successful, they can tell you, it's not enough. Money is not enough. Wealth is not enough. Power is not enough. Beauty is not enough. All of that is not enough to really fill the vacuum that we have within. So, therefore, we have this intrinsic ability and tendency to then seek for liberation. True freedom, true independence, and it might be in the beginning a form of escapism, that you reject everything that was, hurtful, or not successful or not really fulfilling, but ultimately it's a sense that we don't belong here. Something is wrong. Something is some people say, how they say, the game is rigged, the game is rigged, I can't win, no matter how hard I try, it's rich. Something is not working the way I expected it would be. So then the desire for moksha or for liberation comes, and they are called jnanis and yogis. Prabhupada is translating here. So a jnani is somebody who has knowledge by the process of analysis and also, how you say, sagt man Ausschlussverfahren? Huh? No. Ausschlussverfahren means that you are, sagt man Ausschlussverfahren? Huh? Yeah, you could say elimination, it's called in Sanskrit neti, not this, not that, not this, not that. So basically you try out, you try this out, okay, that's not really the meaning of life or what's really fulfilling. Then you try something else. And just by the process of exclusion, by exclusion, you can determine what is not going to be fulfilling or successful. And then little by little you approach what might be successful. So that's the process of jnana. You study the world, you ponder upon the world, you reflect, you acquire knowledge, understanding, and generally the natural consequence of practicing jnana is that you become detached. You become more and more detached, because you have understanding, you have knowledge. A very simple example is, any form of addiction can be cured at its roots if you have true understanding that what you're doing is harmful. So if you don't have this understanding that it's harmful, or some realization that it's not good for you, then you probably will continue to do it. But the moment you have a realization that, this actually is really harmful, you wake up completely, completely painted over, It's very common. People go to a party and then they wake up, and the friends, have painted his whole face with all kinds of weird signs, and he wakes up in a place he doesn't remember, he doesn't know where it is, When I was in design school, I had some friends who were doing party in Regensburg, and they always, it was kind of like a game, where do we wake up tomorrow, So, and they're like, who is this person, what's going on, So, and it might be funny for some time, but ultimately it's, it's harmful, it's crazy, You might end up at one point, you wake up, one morning, you wake up and you are, who knows, an addict in Bahnhof Zoo, and then it's not so funny anymore, So, but if there is, the moment there is knowledge, understanding that actually this is harmful, you can elevate yourself from this condition. You can become detached. So sometimes knowledge comes from, heartfelt pain and experience, and if you are a little bit more intelligent, this knowledge can come from hearing. Just from hearing, you have enough, you could say, intellectual capacity or imagination that you can understand. Just by hearing, that is really probably something I should not do. I remember one time I was in Straubing, I think, somewhere, and I met this couple, and somehow we started talking, and it came out that they were heroin addicts, But somehow we became friends, so they invited me to their apartment, So I went to their apartment, and I was sitting with them and talking, and I was telling them honestly, what you're doing is not really good, And it was the boy did not want to hear it at all, He didn't want to hear it, And she was telling us, no, tell us more, tell us more, please, So it was really interesting. And then at one point he was like, okay, I also want to hear, And it was really interesting because the first reaction of the boy was, I don't want to hear it because that means I'm doing something wrong, I don't want to hear it, But through knowledge, through understanding, we can elevate ourselves. And the yogi is a little bit similar to a jnani, but the difference is that the yogi is not so much dependent on theoretical knowledge, but actually he has some mystical experience. You know, he has a strong sensation of spiritual reality. You know, or the presence of the divine within. You know, in meditation, the yogi senses that there is something higher. You know, something divine, something. There is purpose in life, you could say. You know, so the yogi, of course, part of yoga is also always detachment, and yeah, any of these three situations you might find yourself. You know, if you're a yogi, if you're an intellectual, if you are, karmi, who has all kinds of material desires, you know, or you are a devotee, if you practice bhakti yoga, then basically Srila Prabhupada describes this very often, that we should trust that Krishna knows what is best for us, you know. And that's the idea behind this verse. Srila Prabhupada quotes it very often in different parts and also directly in the purport of this verse. Srila Prabhupada talks about how the devotee should have the trust that Krishna knows what's best for you. You know? And when you have all kinds of material desires, some devotees might be capable of actually receiving these desires, these boons. You know, you want a lot of money and influence and power. You know, and Krishna might fulfill it. You know, because you will still be able to progress in Krishna consciousness. But Srila Prabhupada also mentions that when we take shelter of Krishna, we should be open to how he reciprocates. You know, we might have all kinds of desires, but if Krishna knows that it's going to be harmful for us to have a lot of power and money, then he might not give it to us. You know, on the contrary, you know, Prabhupada says that Krishna is known as Hari. You know, Hari is he's taking away. You know? And many people in Hinduism actually know that. You know, they say Hari. You know, you have to be careful with Hari. You know, if you surrender to Hari, you know, like Prabhupada also. No, Rupa Goswami makes his warning. No, is it Rupa Goswami? You know, don't go to Vamsivat. You know, if you go to Vamsivat, you will see this beautiful form of Krishna playing the flute in a full moon night, and it might just, you know, steal your entire material existence. You know. It also says that taking bath in the Yamuna not only removes your sinful activities, but also your good karma. You know, it takes away all karma. You know, so yeah. So that's you can say that's the gamble. You know, we're taking, but the benefit is sure. You know, and of course, Srila Prabhupada, very interestingly, very often, if you read Prabhupada's purports, very often he promises that it is possible to have this balance between, you know, like he says here also, material and spiritual profit. You know? It doesn't have to be exclusive. You know? But if you read more or you hear attentively, Prabhupada also warns that Krishna will decide. You know? If you can handle both, you know, or if maybe for you, you know, being a little bit in poverty, you know, in simplicity might be better. You know. Krishna is also managing all our karmas, so whatever, you know, remaining reactions we have to endure, we should also take them, you know, as Krishna's mercy. Actually, you know. That's also described. You know, that we should not think, you know, I have surrendered to Krishna now. Now everything should be smooth sailing. You know, from now onwards. You know, smooth sailing. And of course, the very amazing examples are the Pandavas. You know, they were so close to Krishna. No? They were friends and also cousins. You know, they were related. They had family relation with Krishna. So what could go wrong? What could go wrong? You know, should have been smooth sailing. You know, but it was not. You know, it was everything but smooth sailing for the Pandavas. You know, it was very tough. You know. Ultimately, of course, they were victorious, but at what price? You know, if you read in the Bhagavatam in the first canto, Yudhishthira Maharaj sounds very similar to Arjuna. You know, like Arjuna was afraid of all of this before the battle, and Yudhishthira Maharaj is complaining that all of this happened after the battle. You know, that everything is destroyed, so many people have been killed, I'm so sinful, just to gain the throne. And he's really distraught. He can't really enjoy it, actually, He's ruling out of duty and dharma. But ultimately, of course, they gain spiritual salvation. And you could also say that the Pandavas, no matter in what position they were, because in the Mahabharata, actually, the description is that they go to, the heavenly planets first, First, they encounter hell, all of them had a reason why they had to encounter hell. It's a very interesting chapter. After they die, in the Bhagavatam, there's the description that they retire, but there's no detail what happened. And the Mahabharata describes how they walk up the Himalayas, and one by one, they're sleeping, into the abyss, of the Himalayas, including Draupadi also. And there's a dog that is accompanying all of them, And this dog is actually Dharma, and Yudhishthira is the only one at the end left. And then there is, I forgot the details, but somehow Yudhishthira has the option, to go to the heavenly planets, but he has to leave the dog behind. No dogs allowed on this aircraft. And Yudhishthira says, no, I can't do that, He took shelter of me. He has been accompanying our whole journey to the Himalayas, I stay with the dog, I choose the dog over and then Dharma, then the dog is actually his father. Dharma says, you passed the test. But then the next chapter describes how all the Pandavas, after they die, they don't really go to hell, but they have to see hellish conditions. Just seeing it is a punishment. Looking at something horrible, basically. How suffering, how much suffering is there. And I forgot exactly why, but for example, Draupadi she had to go to hell because she had actually a preference for Arjuna. Arjuna was the one who won her in the Swayamvara, so she had a preference for Arjuna, therefore she had to go to hell. So each one of them had a small fault, and then they gained promotion to the heavenly planets. But of course we understand that even they might have gone to the heavenly planets, ultimately they are pure devotees. For a pure devotee, it doesn't make a difference if they are in the heavenly planets, in the earthly planets, in the hellish planets. For a devotee, there is no place where they actually are separated from Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada also emphasizes this a lot in this purport, that matter and spirit is only a question of perception. It's only a question of perception. If we perceive matter as separated from Krishna, then it becomes material. Then it acts upon us as matter. Then the three modes of material nature, they will completely bewilder us. But if we understand that matter is one of the energies of Krishna, or it's part of Krishna, then this material energy does not have to be bewildering. And it's such a simple, in theory, such a simple shift in perception that changes everything. And actually it's sublime and simple, because like in the purports of the Damodarastakam, there's the descriptions that yogis endeavor so much to capture Krishna. All kinds of yogis, they meditate, they spend hundreds and thousands of years or decades meditating, practicing renunciation, or all kinds of different types of meditation to perceive the super soul in the heart, and they're struggling, even after so much endeavor, they might not be able to actually fully be in touch with the Supreme Lord. But Mother Yashoda just bound Krishna, she just ran faster than him and caught him from behind, because he was naughty, So the purport of this is actually very deep. It's that actually to attain perfection, one does not have to be, you could say, an abstract transcendentalist. There's no need of very abstract, deep philosophical understandings. It is a possible path, but it's not necessary. Like, for example, in Buddhism, which of course exclusively focuses on transcending matter, on fully realizing that matter does not exist, ultimately. They want to prove that matter does not exist. All of this, what we are seeing, feeling, experiencing, is an illusion. It doesn't exist. So the meditations that are recommended in Buddhism are called paradox meditations. So you meditate on dry water, or you meditate on, I forgot, there's all kinds of meditations like that, and you try to imagine dry water and it just doesn't make sense, and then at one point everything just dissolves, That's the idea. So, and there's, like, if you read the Upanishads, or if you read the second canto also, there's such elaborate knowledge and understanding, Sankhya Yoga, very systematic understanding how we are manifested in this world, how we can undo and reverse our material conditioning and situation. And all of this works, but ultimately, if somebody has, an attraction for Krishna, all of this is included, all of this is achieved, or you could say fast-tracked. There is a fast track, and the fast track, it's completely natural for us to actually be in touch with Krishna. So there's no need to reject all of matter, as illusory and dangerous, Maya, the witch, if we understand Maya Devi, she's also a servant of Krishna. Maya Devi is a servant of Krishna. Ultimately, we just take shelter of Radharani, Yoga Maya, and the same energy. Yoga Maya and Maha Maya are just two aspects of the same energy. The question is, under which control do you find yourself? Under the control of Maha Maya, we forget that Krishna is supreme, and we are alienated. We are always more and more apart, separated, from being close to Krishna. Yoga Maya also gives us forgetfulness of Krishna, but to an extent, that you chastise Krishna as a son, or the friends of Krishna, they tease Krishna, they tease Krishna. And there's this famous story. Who was telling this story recently? I forgot in which context. But when the Gopas, when they play games, they pick Krishna as the last. They make two teams, and then you pick this person, and maybe if you were in sports or you played, football when you were a child, you probably had this experience, If you are the bad player, you're picked at last, Nobody wants you, basically, And if you had this experience, I was always picked at last and then put in the goal, and then everybody could shoot at me. And Krishna also is always picked at last, but I forgot why. Do you remember why? Yeah, because he's too good. He's not a good party fighter. He's too lenient. So. Yes, Yoga Maya also makes us forget that Krishna is God, and allows for a very, very intimate relationship with Krishna. So, yes, if we don't take, we can take, and you could say the detour is necessary to be able to explain it to more and more people. You could say, the detour is necessary. But ultimately, we should be in our hearts very simple. Like one time I remember I was preaching to a new guest in the temple in Berlin, and probably we talked for 2 hours. And I could see that he was very, he had so many questions, it's so inquisitive, so I was trying to explain everything step by step, material nature, Vedic culture, everything. It was like 2 hours we were talking. And then at the end, the conclusion was very simple, the chanting is the best. Why? Because when we chant, we are taking shelter of the internal energy, Radharani. And by doing that, we transcend the external energy. And for me, it was I had such a small ecstasy, just because Like 2 hours I was talking to him, and finally we could reach to this simple conclusion. The chanting is the best you can do, you know. And he could take it because I talked to him for 2 hours, you know. If I tell him just, you know, chanting is the best, he was like, but why, you know? So, but if you explain everything and you have the whole context and understanding and sensation, then you're like, okay, yeah, actually, you know, if you chant the Hare Krishna mantra, you know, it's non different from the Lord. Hare is the internal energy. That means, you know, you take shelter of the internal energy, you transcend the external energy. You know, our senses, you know, this old Sankhya yoga, you know, they're always attracted towards the external world. The false ego is pushing intelligence and the mind, you know, to identify externally, to try to enjoy and find fulfillment externally, and that's our daily sadhana. You know, we, you know, try to take shelter of Krishna, Radharani specifically, so that, you know, we are not distracted by external Mahamaya. You know? So yeah, chant in 2 words, you know, in the Maha Mantra, everything is there. You know, the whole philosophy is the conclusion. You know, it's very clear. But to get there, you know, we might have to take a few detours. You know? And then there was this very nice word or sentence that Srila Prabhupada emphasized a few times from the verse. Vishuddha Vijnana Ghanaha. Vishuddha means, of course, pure, you know, or without any contamination. Vijnana means science or true knowledge, realized knowledge, science. Ganaha, concentrated. Swarupataha. You know? So, Srila Prabhupada translated it in the purport as, let me see if I find it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the concentrated transcendental knowledge. But there was somewhere else where he said a little bit different. Anyways, the point is that so he makes this connection that the 9 processes of devotional services are described also as Vishuddha Vijnana Ganaha. They satisfy the Supreme Personality of God directly by transcendental knowledge concentrated in the form of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. There's a few places where Prabhupada talks about this. But yeah, the interesting part is, of course, it's similar, like there's another famous sentence, Akila Rasa Amrita Murti, and this is, of course, focusing more on Vishuddha Vijnana Ghana Swarupataha. So the Lord embodies within himself true knowledge, you know, true realization. We understand that theory is only, or knowledge in general, is only valuable to the extent that we apply it, you know. Or the moment we apply knowledge, it becomes truly relevant, you know. Even it can be the opposite. Knowledge, just accumulating knowledge, can become a burden, a distraction to Krishna consciousness, and it can also become a burden. Like Gadadhar Prabhu from the Veda Academy, he gave a very nice lecture many years ago in Berlin, the temple, and he was talking about the burden of knowledge. You know, very, very nice lecture. And he was explaining how if you have a lot of information but don't really understand, don't have really understanding why, you know, or can appreciate why this is relevant information, then it becomes something that is it's burdensome, you know. And he was explaining it in connection also to all kinds of customs that we might have as devotees. You know, we have so many different customs, you know, and some customs might have a direct connection to tradition, and some customs might have been, you know, sneaked in the meantime somehow. You know, Prabhupada also warns about this. You know, the famous example of the cat under the basket, you know, in a ceremony. You heard this before? Yeah. So there's a ceremony, and part of because also here dravyas are mentioned. You know, dravya. Who knows what the word dravya means? Who remembers what the word dravya means? Yeah. Huh? Yeah, but dravya for a pujari means everything we use is dravya, you know. It's like, huh? Yeah, dravya means like, you know, like pujaris will, you know, if you really want to compliment the pujaris, like nice dravyas, you know, nice big silver achman cup and a very special big lamp and a special conch shell with gold fitting and a nice asana of copper with lion feet for your shila, and nice dravyas, you know. So the pujaris always are trying to also collect, you know, nice dravyas. And here in Simhachalam, we have very good dravyas, you know. All the pujaris, when they come, they're like, whoa, Simhachalam has good dravyas, you know. So, now I forgot what I wanted to say. What was I saying before? Huh? Yes. So for a ceremony, you can accumulate so many dravyas, you know, and it can also happen is you're just accumulating dravyas because you like fancy, you know, utensils, you know, but are you really using it for the service of Krishna, you know? Or what is the purpose of this dravya, you know? When the dravya is, you know, for pleasing Krishna, it gains its full potential, you know. It's a sacred item, you know. We consider it to be like Balaram because we're using it directly in the worship of Krishna. All the lamps and pots, you know, we consider them. We don't, you know, disrespect them. We don't touch them with our foot, you know. We consider them to be spiritual items, actually, because they're used in the service of Krishna. But if, you know, we accumulate the dravya that we don't really know why it's there, or, you know, overemphasize it without deep knowledge or understanding, then we might be misguided, you know. And the famous example is of the cat, you know. There's a big, because for all ceremonies there's a list, you know. Shopping lists, you know. You need to put a plate with 9 different grain colors. You put gems. You put, all kinds of utensils, ghee, and a flame, and, you know, kalashas, depending which yagya, different amounts, different shapes of the yagya kund, you know, triangle, 3 steps, 7 steps, you know, no steps under the ground, you know, like deep, how deep, you know. And one story is that they had a cat as part of the ceremony, you know, a cat under the basket, you know, very important, you know, very mystical, very mysterious, you know, why this cat is always there as part of the ceremony. But some research showed that some time ago the cat was disturbing the ceremony, so the pujari said, put a basket on it, you know. And so somebody came afterwards, you know, and they were just observing the yagya, and they said, okay, this is very interesting, you know. This cat is also part of the dravyas, you know. There in the corner of the yagya, you know, on the east-west corner, you have to put a cat under the basket, then the ceremony will be successful. So we should be careful that we don't carry dravyas which are not really connected with Krishna, basically. You know, that's the Srila Prabhupada is also saying here, that everything should be connected to Krishna. And the point I was actually trying to make is the burden of knowledge, you know, just knowledge or just information, you know. This is information, you know, you have part of the list is this cat, but if you don't understand why it was done, you know, then you might be misled, you know, you accumulate more information that is not really related, you know, to transcendence, to spiritual knowledge. So in many ways, therefore, it's good to be a purist also, you know. It's like, you know, in the Christian history, the Protestants, they did that, you know. They realized that, you know, all kinds of things that were done in Catholicism, they're not written in the Bible, you know. So where does it come from, you know? So they tried to, you know, reject everything that was not really, you know, teachings of Jesus Christ, basically, you know. So in a similar way, we should be purists, you know, to really focus on what's essential and not be distracted by all kinds of things that might not be essential. But of course, if they can be used in the service of Krishna, then also they should not be rejected, you know. But we should understand how it's valuable, how it's relevant. Okay, that's it. Maybe there's some questions, comments. Yes, Govinda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. My question is regarding the karma. You mentioned that Krishna gives also, or lets karma react on a devotee. But basically, there is no visible difference. So we see that devotees get sick or whatever, in a similar way as a non-devotee gets sick. But according to your description, there is quite a lot of difference, because in the devotee's case, kind of Krishna gives it, a non-devotee. So how can we like cultivate that we understand that there is a difference, because it doesn't really look different.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even it might look even more tragic, you know, than sometimes people criticize, you know, like, you know, devotees are so sick, you know, they're eating only halava and ghee, you know, like this. Prabhupada always says, you know, when the Ayurvedic doctors look at the throat of an ISKCON devotee, they only see ghee and butter, you know, and sugar. And, you know, I would say that the first thing that I think we should understand is that we, of course, all have a karmic past, you know, everybody, every single person who has a parapta karma, you know, we all have manifested karmas, you know, that's not to be taken away anymore. Whatever is manifest, you know. The way you look, the way the height you have, their abilities, you know, this intellectual, mental, physical, all this manifested karma, we have to deal with it as it is. You know? And with this karma, we join the movement, or we become devotees of Krishna. The very good analogy that is given is it's like a ventilator. When you turn it off, it might still be running, you know. So there's no more, you know, impulse coming, ideally, you know. Also, the initiation is described as such a moment. You know, when you take initiation, you know, you put the banana, and so 0.0, you know. You start from 0 now, you know. But then, of course, can you maintain it? You know, that's the question. You know? Yeah, maybe you contaminate it again, or you know, again make some setbacks. But in theory, either the initiation or the moment where you actually, because initiation means, you know, now officially you are, you know, committed. But the moment you actually commit in your heart and you surrender to Krishna, that's the moment, you know, when you pull the plug. You know, you decide, I want Krishna. I really want Krishna. You know, and this moment everybody had at one point. You know, there might be some other motivations, but essentially we understand, I want pure devotional service. I want to be close to Krishna. You know, I don't want anything material. So, yes, the remaining karmas which are manifested, they will be there. We have to deal with them. And the description also I read is that Krishna, the karmas that are not manifested, you know, they are directly under the control of Krishna. You know? It means that he will supply whatever, you know, karma shayaha. We all have a huge storehouse of karma, you know, from so many different lives. So that Krishna will apply very specifically, directly, you know. And there is this story, I forget which sadhu this was, but the sadhu was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and I also forget the verse which he was reading, but he edited the Bhagavad Gita, you know, where Krishna says, I personally, you know, take care. Huh? Yeah, no? And so he edited the word, and then 2 boys showed up at the house of the Brahmana when he was taking his bath, you know, and they had big cuts on their back, you know, and they told the wife of the Brahmana, your husband has treated us so badly, you know, he was scratching our backs and forced us to come here to deliver this, you know. And the wife was really mad, you know. So when he came back from his bath, the wife was already eating, you know, without him. So he was very surprised and confused, you know. And she didn't talk to him, you know, passive aggressive, you know, rejection, you know. And then finally, you know, he found out, you know, that she was, you know, shocked, you know. How he could treat children like that, you know, and then he realized, oh, how did these 2 children look like exactly, you know? And then he realized it was Krishna Balaram, you know, and they basically said, yeah, we are coming personally, you know. You don't have to edit the Bhagavad Gita, you know. So this faith, of course, it should be we should have this faith, and we should not expect that Krishna might come personally, you know. Even there are plenty of stories where Krishna personally comes, or Radharani personally, you know, brings milk, or you know, or holds an umbrella for a sadhu. All kinds of different stories where Krishna or Radharani or directly reciprocate with the devotee, and he certainly can. But what devotees usually say that they are able to see Krishna's hand. How Krishna made arrangements. In all kinds of different situations, we see Krishna's hands. And I think everybody had some small or bigger situation where you with some reflection, or if you're really Krishna conscious, and you understand everything that's happening is Krishna, you can feel, no, this was not just by chance that this happened, that I suddenly had this luck, I was lucky. No, it was Krishna's hand, Krishna is involved anyways at every moment, only we don't see it, You could also say it like that. It's the same way like Srila Prabhupada says, when a devotee hurts himself, he thinks, oh, I only smashed my toe, Probably my karma was to lose my entire foot, But thank you, Krishna, you only smashed my toe a little bit. So Prabhupada recommends that this should be our attitude. If you're a devotee, you can expect that actually something much worse probably was in store for you in karma. But because you're a devotee, Krishna is adjusting to such a way that it's good for you. But again, the purport of this verse is akarma sarva karmava. Krishna knows what's best for us, Maybe it is for us good to suffer a little bit more, to have some extra, turmoil, like in the case of the Pandavas, for example. And there is a verse also in the 11th canto where it says that actually Krishna gives difficulties to his devotees to glorify them, to show how they react to such a situation. Because that's the test ultimately, And many people, when they are confronted with death or also sickness, or some setback, for many is devastating. Like I read once the story of this, or read this article of this German billionaire. I forgot his name, but he had, I don't know exactly, but let's say he had 30 billion euros, and there was a financial crash 2008, and he lost 15 billion, and he jumped in front of the train, And we're like, hello, you still have 15 billion, But he couldn't deal with the loss, He couldn't deal with the loss, So a devotee, generally you could say we have, Sachinanda Prabhu always used to say that also. The Bhakta, after the Bhakta program, usually you have enough theoretical knowledge to react very differently in most situations, You actually understand, it's when somebody dies, of course it can also be, immature, like, oh yeah, somebody died, in my family. It's normal, death, old age, disease, reincarnation, what to do? So that might also happen, that has happened. But in general, you're not bewildered by somebody dying, because you understand that you might feel separation, just like it's natural to feel separation if somebody moves to a different continent, a very close friend, moves to Australia, So you're sad, but he's not dead, You just know he's in Australia now, So in a similar way, when you understand, the nature of the soul, you understand, okay, this person has died, the body has died, but the soul is somewhere else. You can still show emotion of separation. You can still feel sad that now in this, life you will not meet this person again, But at the same time, you're not bewildered, Many people, when there's a death in their family or a very close person dies, it's just inexplicable for them, that this person suddenly vanished into nothing, And of course, it cannot vanish into nothingness. This is also one of very practical tool to explain reincarnation is the law of physics that all energy is preserved. So in physics, no energy can be lost. Like for example, like the sun energy is stored in wood, and then the wood becomes fire. The fire becomes hot water. The hot water, the energy is being transformed, but energy is never lost. So a person is full of energy, They have so many ideas, plans, emotions, you know. And you can feel when somebody's happy, when somebody's angry, when somebody is very inspiring, when somebody is very aggressive. All of this is energy, you know, very powerful energy, and it moves a lot, and all kinds of crazy things happen in the world because of, you know, human energy, chitta, consciousness, you know, or chitta also is translated as the subtle body, you know, the mind, intelligence, and false ego. So, yeah, it would be ridiculous to think that at the moment of death, this energy just disappears. It has to go somewhere, you know. It has to transform into something, you know. And this is reincarnation. Reincarnation is that this energy, these desires, thoughts, emotions have to transform into something, you know. Because we are much more than physical energy. You know, of course, our body has a certain amount of fat you can burn, you know. But, you know, some people have less fat, some people have more fat, you know. But that's not us, you know. Who we actually are, obviously, is the person, the desires, the ideas this person had, you know, the wishes, you know. This is much more impactful energy. So this is, you could say, emotional energy, intellectual energy, has to go somewhere, transformed into something else. So, yeah, when we have this knowledge and understanding, we perceive death very differently, you know, very differently. In the same way, you know, all kinds of suffering we perceive very differently. So it's based on our perception, and yeah, I personally find the story, if you read the Mahabharata, you know, you feel that all your problems are relatively small. You know. It's and there's so many examples like that, actually, like even in other traditions. Like in Gurukul, they used to show us the story of Franz from Assisi. It's really cool. You know, he was such an interesting, you know, holy person. You know, very obvious, very holy, very detached from this world, and very, you know, he was a friend of all. You know, and he rejected, you know, the family tradition, or the honor he had been given, you know, his family name. He even gave up all the clothes, you know, to his father, and walk out naked, you know, into the world, like another, yeah, like a Shukadev, like a Naga Baba, you know. So Franz from Assisi is, you know, still very famous. So in Gurukul, there was this famous movie from the 70s. We watched it a few times in Gurukul, I remember. And he was suffering a lot, you know. It was like, if you read the details of Franz von Assisi's story, it's heart-wrenching, you know. But he was, you know, something deeper was motivating him, keeping him moving. Okay, something else? Sanjay war zuerst.
What you told me about, there was one devotee of Jagannath once, and he became sick, and so then there was a doctor who took care of him, and he was lying in bed, he couldn't do anything, and the doctor was treating him, and one day this devotee realized, this is Jagannath, and then he asked the Lord, you are the Supreme Lord, you are taking the trouble to come here, why would you not just make me healthy like this? And Jagannath said, yes, I could do this, but you need this for your spiritual emancipation. Mm-hmm. But he was personally coming to treat him. I was just...
Yes. Veda?
Yeah, what I also often understand is this sarva dharman parityaja. Like, if you fully surrender, then he takes away all the sinful reactions, no? Mm-hmm. So also yayata man prapatyate, as you surrender, I reward. So yeah, it's at the it's proportional to our surrender. Krishna takes away the sinful reactions, and we don't suffer so much anymore, and we become situated on the spiritual platform, and then everything is Brahma Bhuta.
But what is suffering?
the threefold miseries from the mind, from the body, from other living entities.
Yeah, but when do you suffer?
When do I suffer?
Yeah.
Probably when I'm attached, huh?
Yeah. Because like there can be a very terrible situation, you know, do you perceive it as suffering or not? You know, that's the question. You know, it's like there can be like horrible situations, you know, but do you suffer in that situation or not? You know, that depends on, you know, on our consciousness. So because sometimes we think that because I have become a devotee, then all suffering situations will not take place, you know. But there might be very challenging situations, but the question is how you react to the situations. You know, how are we able to deal with the situation?
But still there's a passage in the Bhagavatam which also says that there are solutions for all these three sufferings. Like if you have troubles with the mind, you make pranayama. If the body is sick, you make hatha yoga. If you have problems with the providence, you make mystic meditation, japa. And if you have problems with other living entities, you try to become a friend to everyone. So it's also like this. But then I heard that the suffering, I think you also said it, that Krishna also bestows this as a kind of benediction to a particular devotee to also to glorify him that he went through this tribulation, right?
So yes, there are cures, you know, for all kinds of sufferings, but there's because the karma is very complex, you know, so it's not guaranteed, you know. So, like I had there was this lady in Berlin we were preaching to, and she was you know, very expert in yoga and very healthy diet, you know, like perfect, you know. And then she became really sick, you know, some form of cancer, or intestinal problem, really heavy, you know, really heavy. And all her, you know, customers and friends, they were like, you know, how could this happen to you? You know, you're doing everything right. You know, you have the most healthy diet than all of us. You know, so and then she was telling us, you know, how she was, you know, she understood that they cannot for a karmi this is very shaking, you know. It's like I did everything right and I'm still, you know, I'm suffering, you know. But for her it was like, I understand there's karma, you know. There's karmas. Who knows what karma is catching up with me now, you know, from how many lives ago. So she took it in a very different way. So she was the one suffering. She took it very cool, and actually all her customers and yoga students, they were completely confused, you know. So like that. So it's you know, we don't, and the protection of Krishna is because it says, even like he has also mentioned, like even all these ritualistic ceremonies, you know, any form of positive karma, which means, you know, you're doing some ritual related to the Vedas to please, you know, some demigod to get a benediction, or, you know, if you do Surya Namaskar or yoga, and somehow, you know, I don't know, you go to Yoga Vidya and you do a yoga course, and there's somehow a picture of Vishnu, and you chant Hare Krishna, and you look at the picture and you're like, oh, this is Krishna, you know. You know, you have benefit, you know, there is a benefit, you know. That's what Prabhupada is saying here, that in all the Vedic karmic traditions, there will be Vishnu in the middle, traditionally, or somewhere, you know. Krishna will be there, and we will have a benefit from it, you know. And it can save you from the greatest danger, you know. But the greatest danger is not an atom bomb will, you know, explode over your head, you know. The greatest danger is, you know, to get entangled in this material world even more, you know. It means that this one small devotional unit that you have will never be vanquished, you know. You can always build on it, you know, and continue, no matter where you end up. Okay? Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. enough space for